Hey guys, and welcome to the 10th episode of the 12 Days of Switchmas, and today I will be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. I am a big fan of the Xenoblade franchise. I've been a fan for about 5 to 6 years, and I have been wanting a Xenoblade X remaster for so long. I really didn't want that game to be stuck on the Wii U, so I am so glad that this finally happened. This was really the last true Switch 1 era game, and I think this was a great game to end this era off with. I know we're technically getting a couple more Switch 1 games with Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life, but this was the last one released before the Switch 2, so I feel like this is the last game of that era specifically. And the fact that it's a Wii U port was very fitting, since we got a lot of Wii U ports over the Switch 1 era, and this one feels like one of the most definitive ones. I would say, other than 3D World and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, this was really one of the best Wii U ports, because it adds so much and does so much with the original game. And I would say, technically, this is a lot more than a port. This is a full-on remaster. Not quite a remake. I think a remake of an HD game is a little silly, so I would say this still is technically a remaster. And Xenoblade X itself is a great game. The open world is handled very well, everything feels very open-ended, and I really like how the missions are handled. They have you going to different areas, side quests have you going to, lots of different areas as well, with the hub world being New Los Angeles. And this world is actually bigger than it was in Breath of the Wild, which is really impressive. Breath of the Wild usually gets all of the credit for being Nintendo's big open world game, and it kind of makes sense why it is, because Xenoblade is a little more niche, and I would say Breath of the Wild is better in my opinion, but I feel like Xenoblade X still handles its world very well. There still is a lot to do here, a lot of enemies, a lot of variety, a lot of different areas, so I just think it's really interesting. And the combat is also very fun and engaging as well. It feels very similar to Xenoblade 1's combat, and it doesn't have any of the extra abilities and nuances of 2 and 3, but it's still designed very well. And I also like how you can use the Skell in combat as well. The Skell has its own combat system, which is really nice, and you can actually fight in the Skell alongside your other party members too. So it's really interesting with some of the things. It also has overdrive as well, which is kind of what replaces the chain attacks. So I definitely think the combat is very fun. The Skells also add a lot of freedom to this game, and it makes these worlds very fun to traverse. You don't unlock the Skells until a decent chunk of the way into the game, and I think that's perfect, honestly. The game kind of gets you used to walking around on foot, and kind of gets you used to the combat and just most of the things that it has to offer. It kind of makes you feel kind of accompanied to this world before it introduces these traversal methods, which I think is perfect. I think that is a great way of pacing this game, because if you got the Skell from the start, I feel like everything would fly by really quickly. And once you do get the Skell, I think things are kind of paced pretty well too, because it has the Skell in mind. And there's also a lot of different things you can do in only in the Skell, a lot of areas that you can access only through the Skell, parts of the map being unlocked. So I think that was a great way of handling things. The story is also really good too, despite it not being quite as strong as in the others. The characters are written really well, especially Elma and Lau. There's also a decent amount of emotional weight to it too, not as much as Xenoblade 3, but still a decent amount. And it feels like a huge departure from the other games in terms of its tone and structure. Its story is completely different and disconnected from the other games, which I actually kind of like. It's a nice change of pace. It almost feels like the Super Mario Bros. 2 of Xenoblade, and that would actually kind of be accurate too, since this was the second Xenoblade game. I've only played a little bit of the original, but the remaster is better in so many ways. The quick cooldown for arts makes things much more streamlined, and it also shows the color combos for activating overdrive, making that process much simpler. It feels much more like a mechanic that would have been in 2 and 3, rather than its own thing, since I feel like 2 and 3's combat kind of had a bit more structure and direction to it, so I definitely feel like having a guide for Overdrive makes a lot of sense, and the follow ball leaving a path makes it much more clear where to go for missions. And there's also online missions as well. I know this was also in the original game, and they're fun, but the online components leave a lot to be desired. You can really only do select combat missions, which are fun, but they don't have much variety. It also requires you to be at a certain level, so you have to play a big chunk of the game in order to access the online, or at least most of the online. I think having an option for full free roam online would be really fun, even if it only limited it to like 2 or 3 or 4 players. I still think it would have a lot of value to it, and the world of this game has a lot of potential for it as well. Select missions and side quests being playable would also be nice. So I really hope an expanded online is something that they add in like a Switch 2 edition if they ever do one, because I think there's a lot of potential for it. Graphically, this game looks really impressive on the Switch 1. It got a huge overhaul from the Wii U, especially in terms of character models. The character models look really weird and sometimes downright ugly on the Wii U, but they actually look pretty good on the Switch. Much more closer to how they look in 2 and 3. And the game runs well, but unfortunately, since it is a Switch 1 game, it still runs at 30 FPS. I know 60 FPS isn't entirely necessary for this game, but I think it would be a nice addition, and I would prefer if it was 60 FPS. Though there is an unused 60 FPS setting, so I'm hoping this does get a Switch 2 update sometime soon at the very least. But anyways, I think Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is a great remaster, and I am so glad that more people get to experience it. Unfortunately, we didn't get a sales update for this game since it didn't hit 1 million by the time the last fiscal year ended, so I'm hoping they update it at some point. I'm hoping this game sells 1 million in this fiscal year at some point, so it gets like some kind of recognition. Probably not, since it probably would have gotten some kind of recognition in Nintendo's sales report, so we probably really won't know how well this game will sell. And that's kind of unfortunate, honestly. Though this was released very late in the Switch 1 era, so I don't really think this plays a factor in what they'll do for the future of Xenoblade. I think Monolith Soft will still develop Xenoblade games regardless of how much they sell. Like, they're a very talented and passionate studio, and Xenoblade 3 sold well as well, so they're probably hard at work for a new game on Switch 2. And I'm hoping they also release that new IP at some point that they've been hinting for many years. But anyways, let me know what you think of Xenoblade X down in the comments, and thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!